Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, November the 6th was a big day because, we had this election in the United States and, this sensational outcome in the American election. But there was also a very interesting development in Europe. Our good friend, Sergeant Schultz, or also known as Chancellor Olaf Scholz, has had a bit of a political crisis on his hands. His
Oh,
government, his traffic light coalition, has collapsed. It was a very strange kind of coalition. I mean, you have this kind of these Greens who hate all fossil fuels. Then you have the sort of the socialists who kind of go along with the Greens, and then but you have the Free Democrats who are supposedly this kind of fiscally conservative um, entity, and who always seem to be in every
yeah,
German
but how can you
government.
be fiscally conservative when there's no money?
Exactly, that was the problem, and I think so. The finance minister, who was one of these Free Democrats, said precisely that there's no money, and he was very unhappy about these green, energy. They sort of, they're putting in all these quotas of how much, how much, fossil fuels Germany will be allowed to use.
Meanwhile, Volkswagen closed down three plants.
Exactly. I think that was the point.
Meanwhile,
Yeah,
what is
exactly.
it? IG? I
Volkswagen.
don't even know the name now. IG. What's its new name?
IG Metal. Yeah,
Yeah, Mental.
yeah,
Okay, I don't. I didn't want to say the other one here.
right.
Okay, but they're shutting down plants as well.
That's right. So
Oh, these are industries that need a lot of cheap energy. Oh,
yes,
okay.
that's right. They got to, they need this energy. So you got the German economy is in recession, and he says, "I'm not happy about sending all this money to Ukraine. I mean, we're kind of short on funds here." So Sergeant Schultz fired him. Said, "You're fired," as finance minister. And when upon this his firing the finance minister, the Free Democrats walked out of the government. They said, "Well, that's it. We're out of here." So now the traffic light coalition is no more. You've only got the socialists and the Greens together. We should also remember that the at the moment, according to the opinion polls, the Free Democrats are at 3%.
Yeah,
3%.
but what is the ruling coalition minus the ruling coalition is about 30%.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
this is a really, not only is it in technical terms a minority government, in public opinion, it is a
Yes.
grossly unpopular government.
A very unpopular government. And then of course we had those state elections that we talked about a couple of months ago, which was big victories for the Alternative for Deutschland and for the Sarah Wagenknecht's party. And so Sergeant Schultz now says, okay, well, maybe we'll have some elections next March, which is very strange because that's in about 5 months' time. And so how about, you have an election now? I mean, you basically you don't have a coalition government anymore. Shouldn't you have
Well,
a
and George, you may know this better than I do, but I have never heard of this, even in German political tradition. If the government, the coalition collapses, you immediately have an election. I mean, this is the first. Why is this?
it's very, yeah, that's right. Or you basically just surrender power. I mean, if somebody else can form a coalition government, they have more votes than you have, then you basically surrender power, and then you have that's what happened in 1982 when again the Free Democrats walked out from the coalition with Helmut Schmidt's Social Democrats, and it was over the issue of the missiles. Then basically the Free Democrats then joined the Christian Democrats, and they just simply changed power. And so, without an election, Helmut Kohl became chancellor. But anyway, but the point is, there's not going to be an election for some time, which does make it very strange because then what exactly is Sergeant Schulz's legitimacy as as the German chancellor? But it's very interesting. I mean, this is a real crisis in Germany. I mean, it's a real crisis of the German government. They've never had anything quite like this. since the war, and it's without question it is a consequence of Ukraine, the Ukraine war. It's led to these exorbitant energy prices. Germany has spent huge amounts on Ukraine, and now the finance minister says there's no money, there's nothing in the budget. So Sergeant Schulz has to really take responsibility for this absolute disaster that he's brought on Germany.
As George pointed out, I mean, the German economy is in recession, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel here. It's not like, oh, we're going to bounce back in the third quarter. Nobody's saying that.
Yeah.
There is no light at the end of the tunnel the way things are going right now.
Right.
And I think the Free Democrats, they know this, and that's why they're saying, this stinks. We got to get out.
Yeah, no question. I think they're going to try and rehabilitate themselves so that come the election, they'll be able to creep up to that 5%. That 5% gets them into the Bundestag, because at the moment they look like they're just going to be wiped out, and they won't have any representatives in the Bundestag. So I think they need a few months to rehabilitate themselves and say, hey, well, at least we walked out on Sergeant Schulz.
Meanwhile, the populist parties grow in popularity.
Exactly, and that's when it gets quite interesting, because because now that it's obvious that Ukraine is just leading Germany to an absolute disaster, then the two parties that have been the most consistent in opposing this German policy in Ukraine will be these two populist parties. So they're of course very gleeful and looking forward to the election. It's going to be interesting, because the Christian Democrats are also very pro Ukraine, but they won't be able to govern by themselves. They just don't have the votes. The great days of when the Christian Democrats were so all powerful, they're gone. The Christian Democrats are not all powerful anymore.
And the German Greens have been completely discredited.
Exactly.
Okay? I cannot see. I mean, Annalena Baerbock, she doesn't care about her voters. She cares about Ukraine. I mean, with that kind of mentality, she will probably demand to stay in the leadership of the party. Under normal circumstances, you'd get the boot. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they have a real problem, because, if you think about what Germany is, it's got a problem with immigration. Big issue within Germany. There's again uncontrolled immigration, including Ukrainian immigration. They have the problem of this Ukraine, and then they have this problem with energy. I mean, it's a real problem, and this is a direct consequence of the Greens, and that's why the Greens are so discredited. I mean, they really are the most discredited movement in Europe. I mean, they're hated everywhere, because for no reason at all, Europe has taken this very energy position, and it's leading to absolute disaster.
It's so strange, at least for people like George and myself. It's so strange to have a fanatically pro-NATO, pro-militarism, but at the same time they're into windmills. I mean, it's weird.
Extremely weird.
Very weird.
Exactly. It makes absolutely no sense. But that's that's what the Greens have done. So they launched themselves as being against. Oh, we're against nuclear weapons. Against NATO. They're the most fanatically pro NATO. Pro alternative energy, and and they're generally also pro-immigrant. They resist any attempts to curtail immigration into Germany. And I mean, they shouldn't be in government at all. And yet Annalena Baerbock will continue for another 5 months as German foreign minister. I mean, however absolute dreadful she has been for Germany, she will continue as before. So I think, as you said earlier, it's a very strange concept of democracy that's operating here. I mean, how can you stay in government when the very predicate was that you have a coalition is now gone? You don't have a coalition anymore.
They're fundamentally, to their core, anti-democratic. They don't want to. I mean, like I said, I mean, under the way Germany is governed, they're no longer a viable power, a potent power. Okay. To govern. They don't have the mandate to govern. And then public opinion universally wants to see the end of this coalition, but Olaf Scholz wants to, well, maybe March, I think their mandate comes to an end. Is it October of next year?
September, so
September.
4 years, 4 years, yeah. It's been, one of the worst German governments in post-war history. I mean,
Oh, it's short. It is the worst.
it is the worst.
By a stretch.
That's
Okay.
right.
I
There's
mean,
always
George and I, we've lived this for our entire adult lives. Okay. I mean, German politics is not interesting. Okay. And that's good. It's
that's right.
very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's been very pragmatic, systematic. I've always said it, a little bit of levity here, let the French do the politics, let the Germans do the policy. Okay. That's good for Europe. Okay. But people, the fanatics like Annalena Baerbock, she can't do policy or politics. And Schultz's government shows they can do neither.
That's right.
Okay. Stay with your strong suit. Okay.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's why, I mean, this, when you think that they came to power, it's 2021, they've been sort of completely at sea. They have absolutely humiliated themselves over the Nord Stream gas pipeline, and yet they continue, and so the German people are not really getting any kind of a say in the matter. And basically you have to say this is a totally disastrous.
But don't you get a kick out of the fact, George? We've mentioned this before, is that Donald Trump, he asked, "What's going on in Europe?" Said, well, it's who should we call in Europe? Sergeant Schultz? No. Macron? No. Get Victor Orban now.
Victor Orban, yeah.
He'll explain to us what's going on in Germany, and he will.
That's right. And you're absolutely right.
My point in bringing that up here is that Germany by far is the largest economy in Europe. Okay, and traditionally it's been an industrial powerhouse. Like I said earlier, German politics has been relatively calm, very rational, very pragmatic, to make it boring so the rest of us can sleep at night.
Right,
okay?
right.
But now it's irrelevant. Who is this guy? Nobody's going to call him.
No. You're right, because you got the Sergeant Schultz, who's obviously he's done. So there's absolutely no point in calling him.
Yeah. Why? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for the tooth fairy? I mean, are you waiting for unicorns?
And then you got Macron, who sort of, is kind of also basically lost control of government. He's now, this has this sort of center-right government. So he's also essentially, done. He's a kind of a lame duck president.
Did you see him at that
European policy?
They always have meetings about something.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you see how he was kind of strutting around like Europe has to be self-sufficient. Europe has to have a new. I mean, now you say it after everything. Now you say it.
That's right.
These are not serious people.
That's right. And he doesn't really mean anything by it. I mean, that's the thing. And it says, "Oh, yeah, Europe has got to do this," but you haven't done it. I mean, you had an opportunity to carve out an alternative. You could have said no to the Biden people. You could have said, no, we're not going down this path. We have to come up with some negotiated settlement. That's what people used to be afraid of. I mean, when Victoria Nuland back then, she was worried that the Europeans were going to thwart her policy on Ukraine, that they were going to cobble together some sort of a deal. So, and that's when she did her F the EU. Hey, they're going to thwart us. But essentially, it was the Americans who, Victoria Nuland, who basically, sabotaged any kind of an agreement.
But yesterday, I think it was in the last news cycle, this meeting I'm talking about.
That was yesterday, this meeting in
Budapest. Zelensky was there, of course.
Yes,
okay.
Yes,
but I mean, in looking at the video footage, it was patently obvious, George, that all Macron wanted was a photo op, because the way he was sitting and he was looking at the camera, he's smiling, got his three-piece suit, and all that, it was all gesturing. It's like, nothing important to say, But
Yes.
you just want to, on the nightly news in France, you want to look like a statesman
Right.
because you are acting the role of a statesman instead of
Right.
really being a statesman.
Right. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. What is so obvious when you get these meetings, this is a big meeting because it's not just for the EU, but it's for the aspiring EU member states. This whole thing is a brainchild of Macron's. I think it's called it. I think it's the European Political Community.
Yeah,
I
something
think
like that.
that's the name. So this is Macron. So not only just the EU, but those who want to join the EU. You all get together as part of the political
Are the
community.
Colombians there?
And
No, they want to join NATO. Sorry, sorry.
that's right. And then, but basically, you're nothing. You're absolutely nothing. You don't count at all. Whatever happens in Ukraine will be decided by the United States, whichever way the United States goes. But that's what's going to be deciding. So the whole world, we're you had an opportunity to carve out an alternative position. You failed. And now it will be decided by the Americans. And you can complain, oh, Donald Trump might let us down, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump, but you got yourself into this position. There was no need for you to get yourself into this position.
What was so interesting about that meeting is not him strutting around like a peacock like he likes to do, but it was what I found really fascinating. He wanted a photo op with Orban.
Yep.
And it was, and why?
Yep.
Why? Because he's trying to tell Trump, you can call me too.
Yeah.
I'll take your call. And Victor's like, it's
Yep.
already been done. It's already been taken care of.
That's
Okay.
right.
I
That's right.
talked to him last night. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
I'll send it. I'll put in a word. Okay, let
That's
me
right.
put it.
That's
I'll put
right.
in a word.
That's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Meanwhile, hold my beer. Okay.
You're absolutely right. The U.S. ambassador to Hungary is David Pressman, who absolutely loathes Orban. He delivered this speech the other day saying, "Well, Orban gambled everything. Hungarian American relations. He gambled it on like a gambler at the casino table. He gambled everything on Donald Trump. Okay, he won, but he's a gambler, and now you can't have a gambler. So, but you could say the same thing about the Europeans. They gambled everything on Biden and people like Biden being there forever. Orban gambled and he won.
He won.
He won, and now he's golden. He's Europe's golden boy. I mean, he's already spoken to Trump. He was one of the first people to speak to Trump on election night. And he said, yeah, we gotta, Elon Musk was on the line as well. We're gonna do great things together. So
I think it's so funny. Piers Morgan, Victor Orban, Elon.
so, yeah.
I'm sure, like any other call from Europe.
No, and I think as we were discussing earlier, if you think about who's the big loser. The big loser has to be Keir Starmer. I mean, I think that he's the one who really miscalculated.
Yeah, when you look at the guy, you think kiss of death. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I seriously doubt he'll be in the U.S. anytime.
I seriously
in the
doubt
UN General Assembly next December.
Yeah, you have to kind of wonder. There's something wrong with the guy. I mean, it's like to have so little political sense, to have so little innate instincts about how to play politics. This is a person who just doesn't understand politics, and maybe that's it. Maybe he spent all his life being a prosecutor. He kind of wandered into this, but to behave so stupidly for so long. That I mean, of all people in Europe, he looks the worst.
But this comes from this ridiculous ideological purity perspective. Okay, you're always trying to show your purity in front of your, elite peers. That's what this is all about. Everything's like a vanity project for these people, and because he's thinking, well, what does Annalena Baerbock think about me? Okay, and I have to outshine Macron. Like nobody in Europe cares about these people. No. And then you have Viktor Orban saying, hey, I'm a free agent. I'm going to go to Moscow. I'm going to go to Beijing. Right. I'm going to go talk to people. Right. That's called retail politics. Okay, that's what you find out what's going on. Okay, you have to go to people where they are. Okay, these elites here are so cut off from reality.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's right. And I think that the I think the French and the Germans, they look sort of really. I mean, Trump doesn't hold grudges. I mean, once something is over, it's over. But he knows that these people don't count for very much. So
That's
he's
it.
not going to sit there thinking, I have to really clear this with Macron. He's not going to clear anything with anyone. I mean, he's just simply going to decide for himself what he should do. And so this whole European political community, it just means nothing. It's like, there's nothing at all. Neither the war in the Middle East nor Ukraine depends on the European political community. It's like, for whatever 43 presidents or heads of government attended, not one of these 43 is going to count for anything.
No, I think we've already made it very clear. I mean, first of all, we've had a couple of guests here over well, I think the last year, Germans and French, and well, how will be Trump's perspective on Europe? And George and I were in agreement that he doesn't care. Okay,
No.
I mean, he's going to go down the path of the tariffs. Okay, obviously he's not going to discriminate. It's tariffs on all of them. Okay, and number two, if Europe comes on the horizon, on the radar, just call Victor, find out what the fuss is, okay? And that'll be it.
Right.
That'll be it.
Right. It will be. It will be it, and I think that's right because he's now gone. He has. I think literally he has Victor on speed dial. So he is indeed going to call Victor whenever he has a question in his mind. I mean, I think Viktor Orban is now probably as much in his inner circle as say Tucker Carlson is. So it's like if he has any kind of questions, he calls up Tucker Carlson. I think if he has any questions, he's going to call up Viktor Orban. That's quite a remarkable trajectory for a small country like Hungary. So yeah, I mean the ambassador, he was right. He gambled and he won. Well, that's the way it goes. I mean, when you gamble and you win, that's you get your reward. I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be very good for Hungary.
Well, the close, I said from the very, very beginning of this iteration, the conflict in Ukraine, everybody that puts their fingerprints on it is going to rue the day, and they are. They are. Yeah. Like bowling pins, one after another. Okay. Right. Because it had nothing to do with European interest, had nothing to do with European security.
No.
Okay. It got the petty purity politics,
right,
and
right. No,
you just trashed your economies. Wow.
Exactly. So you're a German chancellor. Your main objective has to be what's good for Germany, what's good for the German economy. All these abstractions like the transatlantic alliance, NATO, our partners, our allies, and all the rest, they don't mean anything. Who cares that you had the transatlantic alliance front and center?
And what has that done for Europe?
What's it done for you? Who cares? Well, it's like it's done nothing for you. The Americans haven't done badly out of it, but Germany got nothing out of it. And I think that's right. The Germans are so unhappy. This is a real.
Well, they got a lot of Ukrainians. They got a lot of Ukrainians.
Yeah, exactly. They got a lot of you, but they have to pay welfare. Exactly. We have to pay them welfare
for a war Washington wanted.
Right. Exactly.
How did we get here, George? It wasn't like this in the 70s and the 80s.
No. That's right. At that time, you had something called European leaders who thought primarily about their own countries. It's about their own countries. I mean, Sergeant Scholz never thinks about his own country. I mean, that's the remarkable thing. You never think about what's good for your own country. I think you're always thinking about what's good for this little elite group that you are a member of. And I think that's really the problem. All of these leaders who come to these conferences, they're always only thinking, well, what's good for us?
I mean,
we political leaders.
And how many euros do you find in your pocket pontificating about your values? I don't get that. Can I take European values and get a cheeseburger? Do they use that currency? Here's some European
That's
values.
exactly as of values. Yeah.
Can
Yes.
I have a shake with that too?
Well, you're absolutely right. But the great thing for them is that they actually, because they're all receiving public money, they don't really think about, European values and try to exchange that for a cheeseburger. So when they get wined and dined, when they go to these conferences, it's all on the public dime. So as long as everything is coming on the public dime, you don't have to think about whether you can get a cheeseburger. And that's the
Like
problem, that you
the rest of
essentially
us,
have a parasitical class. And I think this elite group is a parasitical class.
the rest of us have to.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay. You couldn't write a political horror story like this if you tried. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone is going to be held accountable for this catastrophe. Okay. One way or another. Who's benefited politically in Europe? Orban is the only one.
Exactly.
Fico in Slovakia. He's a survivor. He'll survive.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They say the arc of history, like I like that idea too, but it's bending in my direction, not their direction.
Right.
Okay. All right, everybody. We're going to keep an eye on these dreadful people. Somebody has to hold them to account. We do.
Yep. Yep.
All right. This is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on Local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. This is Friday. We'll do our mega wrap on Sunday.
Yes.
I stream on Monday.
Live stream.
I'm making the sacrifice of going
at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So please join us and think about these ferocious hounds who's they're focused on money. They're not interested in ideas and all these fancy things. They think what does it do for the bowl, the food bowl? That's it. They're very fixated. I admire that. They concentrate, does it add to the food bowl or doesn't it add to the food bowl? So that's the way they think. So to keep them happy, to keep them placated, if you've got a few bob, behind the sofa cushion, in your pocket, just whip them out, dunk them into that tip jar. Might put them in a better frame of mind. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.